Hello and welcome to another Behind the Music. Today we are featuring one of the most famous composers from the Romantic period, Johannes Brahms. Brahms was born on May 7, 1833 in Hamburg, Germany. Music was already integrated into the family as his father was originally a professional double bassist and taught Brahms the violin at a young age. At the age of 7, he started studying piano, whose teacher was always constantly complaining that Brahms could be such a good player, but he will not stop his never-ending composing. Against his parents' wishes to focus on performance, it was clear that Brahms was to spend his life composing, and that is what he did. Let us look into some of the pieces that Brahms is most famous for, and what exactly made him so famous. Brahms was known for being a perfectionist, which would explain why his first symphony took over 14 years to complete. Not only this, but Brahms was expected to become the new great composer after Beethoven, so expectations were high from the very start, and Brahms was afraid to release anything in fear of disappointing this idea. In 1876, the work was first premiered and well received by the public, and was referred to as Beethoven's 10th Symphony. Perhaps Brahms gained some confidence after the long struggle to release the first symphony, because he premiered his second symphony only 1 year later in 1877. The music was written while on a summer holiday in Austria. Not only did the symphony vary in time it took to be written, but the music itself had a more lighthearted feel to it, which could be due to the beauty that surrounded him while writing. While writing his symphony, Brahms sent a score to an amateur musician friend, Theodor Billroth, who after playing through the music wrote to the composer, "It is all rippling streams, blue sky, sunshine, and cool green shadows. How beautiful it must be." One of his most famous pieces would be written in this exact place 1 year later, which is his Violin Concerto in D major, written in 1878. Brahms, being a terrible self-promoter, had written to his friend about this piece. The second movement was a feeble adagio, which is usually recognized as the most loved movement in the piece. As we see in his piano concertos, this piece was not your typical concerto. The violin enters with the timpani in the first movement, which was most likely a homage to Beethoven, who does this as well in his own violin concerto. Not only this, there are moments that feel like a symphony rather than the orchestra following the soloist, as can be apparent in this feeble adagio, where the oboe introduces the melody in a long, beautiful solo before the violin even enters. Not all soloists were fans of this, as one famous violinist called the work unplayable, and another soloist refused to play because he didn't want to stand on the rostrum, violin in hand, and listen to the oboe playing the only tune in the adagio. Other than symphonies and concertos, Brahms wrote some very lovely wind chamber pieces, such as the trio in E-flat major for horn, violin, and piano. This piece was composed in 1865 to commemorate the death of his mother, who died earlier that year. Some believe the choice of horn was because he played horn as a youth and would play folk songs for his mother on it. Brahms spent a lot of time walking in nature and finding musical inspiration, so it is not surprising that it is said that Brahms came up with the opening melody in the first movement when walking through the woods. To this day, this piece is known as one of the best pieces written for horn. We also cannot talk about Brahms without talking about one of his most famous works, the German Requiem, which was composed between 1865 and 1868. Some interesting aspects of this music is that it was sacred but not liturgical. In other words, the music was written in German instead of Latin, and he drew text from the German Luther Bible instead of the Roman Catholic Requiem Mass. It is believed this was written in memory of his late mother, as well as the death of his longtime friend Robert Schumann. The Requiem was Brahms' longest work, averaging 70 to 80 minutes of music, as well as his largest work, calling for choir, orchestra, and soprano and baritone soloist. It should be pointed out that Brahms was not such a religious person, as he had been quoted when speaking of the title, "I would very gladly omit the German as well, and simply put, of mankind." Also compared to requiems of the past, with its text mainly focusing on the dead, this piece was written more to comfort the living. This piece is still referred to today as a real masterpiece, and which set Brahms as one of the most important composers in the world. Thank you for watching, and please join us as we honor Brahms by playing many of his works in the Macau Orchestra 2021-2022 season. See you there!